So without any further ado, via satellite from some far-flung place, some fabulous far-flung place, I give you Dr. Gertrude Glossop. Give it up.
Thank you, Greg, for that lovely introduction. I'm indeed Dr. Gertrude Glossop. I'm sporting a nautical look today as I've just concluded this year's Feast History Walk, Hello Sailor, Queering the Port. I am the alter ego of gay liberationist Will Surgeon, who tonight delivers the History Trust of South Australia's November Talking History presentation. Will and I have been two sides of the same coin for almost 30 years. It's Will that does the hard work behind the scenes. He is, after all, South Australian Historian of the Year 2021 for his contribution to rainbow history. Ours is a very amicable association. Sometimes there has to be a decision about who gets the gig. Of course, we cannot be in the same place simultaneously. Fittingly, it's Will tonight because this year he celebrates 50 years as an out, proud gay man. Will share highlights from this journey in his presentation, Come Out, celebrating 50 years of queer activism, 1972 to 2022. So give it up for Will. Oh, a wee word of warning. I believe he's going to start at the very beginning, 1950s rural South Australia, but he assures me it's very relevant. Namani, history lovers, in greeting you thus, I too acknowledge the Kaurna Nation, the traditional owners of this land, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you, Greg and Gertrude, for that introduction. Thank you, History Trust of South Australia, for the invitation to deliver the November Talking History presentation and for including it in the Feast program. Trigger warning. Consistent with gay liberation ideology, the personal is political. I'm going to get very personal tonight. This year, I participated in ECH STC Rainbow Monologues project. In creating our monologues, we were asked to take something important from our lives and create a 5-minute monologue. What to choose? I decided to go back to the very beginning. The little sissy boy from rural South Australia who was bad at sport. In a sense, it is a snapshot of my entire life. Hello there, my name is William, not Bill, and I'm a little sissy boy who is bad at sport. You see, I'm growing up with 3 sisters, and our games include storytelling, dress up and play acting. How we love to raid the dress up box, slip into fancy dress and even high heels and run out into the garden to act out the stories we've made up. We truly become fairies at the bottom of the garden. So you see, I'm not used to the rough and tumble of boys' games, and the idea of starting school, playing with other boys, and doing sport is a bit scary. It's June 1956. I am 6 years old and I am in grade 1. The scene is a school oval in country South Australia. A group of us primary school boys run onto the oval to play a game of football. It's my first proper game and I am scared stiff. They put me at the far end of the oval by the goalpost. It's called the forward pocket. At first, the play is at the other end of the oval and I am so relieved. But then the ball and horde of screaming boys is coming towards me. They're almost on me and I am frozen to the spot. Suddenly, I turn and run away. Afterwards, some of the older boys tease me. Sissy boy, scaredy cat, and worse. I report it to my class teacher, and she says, William, you're just going to have to learn to toughen up. I'm too embarrassed to tell my parents and sisters. Cricket. It's no better. Always the last pick for the team. Can't bat, can't bowl. And as for throwing, where the other boys throw like this, I throw like this. You throw just like a girl, the bully boys jeer. I try my hand at tennis. Even girls play tennis, the bully boys sneer. You see, Aussie rules and cricket are the games for real boys. School sports day. At my school, students are aged from 5 to 15, and on sports day, the whole school comes out to play. Everyone has to do something. It's called participation. They say it is good for us. The good sports get to do things like the 100-yard dash, high jump, long jump, triple jump. I am chosen to play the sport for duffers, tunnel ball. And then I get so anxious I can't even shoot straight. Water sports are no better. Having not learned to swim properly, I am a no-hoper. So you see, I'm really relieved when school days are over because it means the end of compulsory sport participation. 1972. I finally admit or embrace my sexuality and join Adelaide Gay Liberation Front. What joy it is to be with other young people for whom playing sport is not important and dressing up is acceptable. And so the years roll on. I'm into my 30s, and I suspect it was fear of impending middle age spread. I get physical. I take swimming lessons. I run marathons, well, a couple, in respectable times for a fun runner. I participate in international gay games, sprint triathlon, cycling, running, and I medal, bronze and gold. The gold is a source of some mirth because, you see, by then I'm in my 60s and I'm the only competitor in the 60-plus sprint triathlon. Sometimes it's just a matter of turning up, isn't it? I also cycle tour internationally, and at the age of 66, I cycle solo from Land's End to John of Groats. Now in my 70s, keeping fit and exercise are essential to my very being, but that little sissy boy is always there. I still love dress up. I've developed an alter ego, Dr. Gertrude Glossop. She has a PhD in formal drapery, Greg, from Curtin University, and her mottos are decorate while you educate, paint the lily, add a hue unto the rainbow. Styled Queen of the Walk, she's won acclaim for her Rainbow History Walks, is an authority on Adelaide gay history, and is a published author. Next year, Gertrude celebrates her 30th anniversary. She will truly become a pearly queen. Friends, now as a septuagenarian, I have a fantasy. I imagine myself going back to that football oval of 1956, and I run after scared, fleeing William, and unlike those bully boys and tough teacher, I say, hey, William, you're going to be just fine. Being a sissy boy is no bad thing. Be proud of your artistic side. One day you'll get paid to dress up and perform. And you'll be a bit of a sporty boy too. You'll win medals, swimming, bike riding, running. You see, you can be a sissy boy and a sporty boy. You'll show 'em. Life won't always be easy, William, but with brave heart, it can be delightful. Young William looks up at me beaming. Thanks, old Will, he says. I can hardly wait. And he runs away laughing. I just have to do my text. Oh, good, works, right. Yes, so that's my monologue. And Sisters Susie and Annie are with us today. They've always been indefatigable supporters, and I thank them. Sister Jan has left the planet. She loved attending Gertrude's history walks, and I'm sure she's here in spirit. History lovers, I tell you this story because growing up in rural South Australia in the 1950s and early 60s as a sissy boy who was bad at sport, who was teased because he did not behave like a real boy, was indeed difficult at times. I had a sense even then that I was different. And of course, there were hardly positive alternative role models for boys or girls who did not conform to the expected stereotype and had a sense of emerging same-sex attraction. If there were same-sex attracted adults, they were not obvious, probably closeted, passing as straight, discreet. Church, state, police, and society generally were upholders of traditional heterosexual values. And for men, there was the extra burden of criminality. As the law stood, male homosexual acts could and did attract prison terms, up to 3 years for gross indecency, up to 5 for indecent assault, and up to 10 for the abominable crime of buggery. I recall hearing the story of a local school teacher, male school teacher, from the 1940s who was found guilty of same-sex activity, convicted and imprisoned. I remember my mother shaking her head in disbelief and saying, "But he played a lovely game of tennis." Let's move to 1972. What a year. South Australia had a progressive Dunstan Labor government. In May, the shocking gay bashing drowning of University of Adelaide law lecturer Dr. Duncan occurred. In July, at the conclusion of the launch of Dennis Altman's groundbreaking book, Homosexual Oppression and Liberation, Union Hall, University of Adelaide, an important incident occurred. Youthful academic Jill Matthews leapt to her feet and cried, "Straights out!" Adelaide Gay Liberation Front was born. In December, the progressive Whitlam government, Labor government, took office after 23 years of Conservative coalition rule. Oh yes, change was in the air. What was happening in my life? After a failed attempt at architecture, I had embarked on full-time accountancy studies in 1970. You see, my father ran a rural taxation practice and he wanted me to follow in his footsteps. Yes, country accountant, heterosexual of course, with wife and family. That was my father's plan for me. Now, despite my flamboyant style, I went along with it. I'd had only one gay experience in the Boy Scouts at 15 and had driven those homosexual desires deep down. Oh yes, I believe in the Freudian defense mechanisms of denial and repression. But despite my best efforts, those pesky homosexual desires kept bubbling to the surface. So at the end of the 1971 academic year, I made an important decision: take a break from full-time study and get a job. Why? To earn money to pay for treatment, to be cured of my homosexual desires. Yes, aversion therapy. So early in 1972, I began working at an accountancy firm in the city. But then I had the realization, be yourself, accept your nature. So I started telling family, friends, and even some work colleagues. But no one seemed to be able to tell me how to make contact with other homosexual people. I'd heard that gay men met down by the city bridge. It may have been some throwaway line from an accounting colleague like, "Oh, poof does meet down by the Torrens, you know." So I thought perhaps this is what I might need to do just to meet someone. After Dr. Duncan's drowning, I decided that perhaps this was not the best way to go about meeting others. I do sometimes ponder what would have been my fate if I had ventured down to the river, indeed on that very night of May 10. What if I'd witnessed that awful event? Indeed, what if I'd been thrown in the river? Would I have been able to identify my assailants? Would I have had the courage to report what I saw to police? Fortunately for me, Sister Susie, then a student at Adelaide Uni, gave me a pamphlet about this newly formed group, Adelaide Gay Liberation Front. One Friday night, after drinks with my accounting colleagues at the Duke of York Hotel in Curry Street, I crossed the road to the Women's Liberation Centre and attended my first gay liberation meeting. My life was never the same again. I had found my tribe. I became imbued with gay liberation ideology. We didn't use the term PC back then, but rather IS and IU. Ideologically sound or ideologically unsound. We could be quite earnest. You see, we saw ourselves as revolutionaries in a sense. Some of the fundamental tenets remain with me to this day. I have been described as an unreconstructed 1970s gay liberationist, and it's a label I wear with pride. The personal is political, blatant is beautiful, come out. Oh yes, coming out was a big thing. We were rather down on those who chose to remain closeted and discreet. Public manifestation was considered important. We also wanted to explore different ways of living and loving so that monogamous coupling was not an aspiration. That was for straights. I recall with laughter how this was reported by a Sydney journalist when I attended the 40th anniversary of Mardi Gras in 2018. I was reported as saying that we gay liberationists were not interested in monotonous coupling. Journalists. 1973 was a big year. No longer needing money for treatment, I returned to full-time study and threw myself into gay activism with, dare I say it, gay abandon. Gay was a relatively new term in Australia back then. It was inclusive, much like queer or rainbow are today. Radical, youthful, same-sex attracted women and men were involved in this early movement. GAA, Gay Activist Alliance, the activist branch of gay liberation, had formed. We did sensible things, such as talking to straight groups to educate. We advocated for gay law reform. I well remember sitting in the visitors' gallery of the Legislative Council in 1973 with other activists when the second attempt at reform was defeated. The disappointment was palpable. We participated in more confronting and risky activities too, zaps and spray painting. That memorable message on a large bare brick wall over here at Adelaide Uni, which was in the magazine at the time. You know, ephemera. Bit hard to see, isn't it? I could pass it round, couldn't I? Yes, Bold Sweets was the magazine of the time, and there it was, spray painting, gays fuck for fun. Being involved in the preparations and participation in Gay Pride Week in September was exciting. I recall the thrill of one of our political stunts. In the dead of night, a group of us GAA activists hanging 4 named effigies of police officers under the Uni footbridge. We believed they were responsible for the death of Dr. Duncan. It was my job to ring the press early the next morning. It did not get press coverage, we saw, because seemingly the effigies were quickly removed by the police, no doubt. The Proud Parade, Adelaide's first Pride March, was the climax of the week. I was in the front line carrying the I in those large glittery letters, Gay Pride. Oh, the exhilaration of that public manifestation. Banners, balloons, bunting, chanting, singing. One in 20 of you is one of us. 2, 4, 6, 8. Gay is twice as good as straight. 3, 5, 7, 9. Try it our way just one time. And afterwards, at the speak out. And this is an image of me in Kaftan addressing the disassembled marchers. There's the picture. There is the Kaftan. Again, I have to thank Sister Susie for saving this priceless artefact for posterity. I do see that year of gay activism as one of the highlights of my life. Despite that failed attempt at law reform, we were full of hope. Everything seemed possible. I began house sharing with other gay men, which added to that sense of community. And then a bit of realism did sink in. In 1974, I had to return to full-time work, so my activism became more limited. However, that ethos of being out and proud, when and wherever possible, especially at work, has been a sustaining principle of my life. I well remember an incident at work in 1975. I was working as an accountant in a commercial enterprise. On the day that gay law reform was finally achieved, the advertiser headline, there it is, first state in Australia to change the law. Homosexuality legal in South Australia. You can see I do love ephemera, don't I? My boss walked into my office and said, "Welcome to the human race, Will." The decade or so from 75 was very varied. International travels in 76, and then life in Sydney from 77 to 82. I was very connected with friends I'd met through gay liberation, and so, of course, participated in the very first Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras in June 1978, held to commemorate the New York City Stonewall riots of 1969, which are seen as the birth of the modern gay liberation movement. That chilly winter night lives forever in my memory. The exhilaration of forging down William Street to King's Cross after the police had seized our leading truck in Hyde Park. In doing so, our march had become technically illegal. And there is something thrilling about being illegal, isn't there? The thrill of parading down Darlinghurst Road in the heart of Cross to the cheering of the Cross habitués, including sex workers, of course, and then the chilling impact of the confronting police blockade at the entrance to Macleay Street. I recall deciding to follow police directives and get onto the footpath. As I walked back down Darlinghurst Road on the footpath, I witnessed the awful scenes as police attacked marchers who had remained on the road. I've often pondered, was I a coward not to get back on the road in solidarity with my brothers and sisters under attack? In fairness, I did have to work the next day, and it was getting rather late. Over the ensuing years, I have returned to Sydney for Mardi Gras and participated in numerous parades. It is so uplifting to be so enthusiastically received by huge crowds which line the streets, and for the police to pray with us rather than attack us. Those of us who marched in the first parade have an honoured place. especially those who were attacked and witnessed. We are styled 78ers. I well remember the 20th anniversary Mardi Gras in 1998. My flatmate at that time, Terry, and I decided to dress for the occasion. I had gala 70s flares tailor-made for us. Mine is here on display, another priceless artefact. Please don't touch. We featured in Sydney's Sun Herald the next day. I loved it. Page 4, we shared with Dies Boys in Equal Share. Sequels and cheers for the great of 78. And you can see the flares there, and there's the real thing. And I can still get in it. Someone dared to ask me. And I don't even have to breathe in. Cheers and greats for the cheers, sequence and cheers for the great of 78. And listen to this, history lovers. You can't read it, it's in the text. Will, a 47-year-old accountant, said, I remember the brutality, the violence in Darlinghurst Road, how the police slammed the door of their paddy wagon on my legs. Journalists never get it wrong, do they? And I had not worked as an accountant since 1975. When I mentioned this error to an academic historian, he advised, when they rewrite history in your favour, don't argue. But the most worrying thing was that people would think I was an accountant. Yes, you can see I do love ephemera and hard copy. Another fabulous aspect of attending the Mardi Gras parade is going to the opening night party and literally dancing the night away. To see the huge number of joyous queer folk celebrating thus is really something and indicative of how far we've come. During the 80s, I lived in Melbourne. This was a more reflective time with a hiatus in my rainbow activism. Settling back in Adelaide from 1989, it's been over 30 years of involvement with a wide range of activities. John Lee, a great friend from those early gay liberation days, had moved back to Adelaide too. He was such a gay enthusiast, committed activist. I could not but help but get involved again. It was through John that I met Ian Purcell. Ian and I were to become close comrades, working on many projects until his death in 2016, and I miss him greatly. As I say in my monologues, I did get physical in my 30s. On return to Adelaide, I joined SAGSA, South Australian Gay Sports and Arts Association. Only gay people could combine sports and arts, couldn't they? And I joined the tennis group. I know it sounds corny, but of course the score was love. It was on the court that I met John, who became my living partner for 23 years. The relationship gave me the opportunity to live my gay ideology. We negotiated various transitions. Monogamous couple, it was initially. Open relationship, very open relationship. Long-time companion, housemates. Today, John lives next door, a good friend and neighbour. So it's been a very amicable transition. We share an early cup of tea most days and numerous other activities. The personal is political. Involvement in SAGSA, which became Team Adelaide, led to participation in international gay games in Amsterdam, Sydney, Wellington, Antwerp, and Darwin. With some meddling, as you've heard. Again, I see this public manifestation of our rainbow community in such massive events as hugely important. I shall never forget the thrill as a member of Team Adelaide, leading the teams of international athletes into the packed Amsterdam Arena at the opening of Gay Games 5 in 1998. At Sydney, Wellington, Antwerp and Darwin Games, Gertrude also performed, thus reinforcing a happy, compatible duality, sporty boy, sissy boy. As a gay man living through the 80s, 90s and noughties, I must mention HIV/AIDS. During the 90s, I served as president of ACSA, the AIDS Council of South Australia. Working as a registered nurse in that era, I sought to take a calm, rational approach and to foster that in my colleagues. Being an out gay man gave me some authority and gravitas in that regard, I believe. Being in an open relationship did mean that we were free to have sexual encounters outside our relationship. This certainly relied on trust and regular testing. We really did have to live the safer sex message. But always there would be that slight anxiety at testing time. I have been safe enough, haven't I? With John Lee and Ian Purcell, I became a founding and long-time committee member and regular presenter of the Uranian Society. Yes, that's Uranian, not geranium, uranium or Ukrainian, Uranian. It's a term used in the 19th century to describe male same-sex attraction. It's Adelaide's Forum for Gay Men's Culture, founded in 1989 and still going today. It is through the Uranians that Gertrude was created. It started with the creation of drag characters to present a Queen's message at the annual Christmas party, and then tour guide Mrs. Gertrude Glossop to lead a walking tour of the little settlement of Urania, of all places on York Peninsula, for a busload of Uranians on which Gertrude revealed its secret gay history. Urania, secret gay history. Of course it was fictional, but it was such fun. When Feast Festival was inaugurated in 1997, the Uranian Society was asked to conduct a gay history walk. And so Gertrude was uprooted from the country and brought to town. And as we say, the rest is history. Gertrude became doctor with a PhD in formal drapery from Curtin University and has conducted history walks at every Feast Festival since. Ian Purcell and Gertrude worked closely together on the first 10 seasons. John Lee's 1979-80 oral histories of Adelaide gay men have always provided a wealth of material. Gertrude and I are forever grateful to Ian and John for their invaluable work. It has been a sort of great pride for Gertrude to conduct Feast History Walks and in recent years to conduct Rainbow History Walks for South Australia's History Festival in May. The special After Dark walk this year on the 10th of May, the 50 years to the day since the drowning of Dr. Duncan, was a very special and moving occasion. Participation in Feast, Adelaide's queer arts and cultural festival, over the last 25 years in a range of capacities and events, has been a glittering jewel in my life, in Gertrude's too. Happy 25th birthday, Feast. You can applaud now. Thank you. I'm not finished, of course. There's lots more. How are you going? It was wonderful to be on the organising committee for Pride March 2003, which 30 years on celebrated that first Pride March in 1973. To be I in Pride once more. Pride March became the opening event for Feast each year. There has been a hiatus because of COVID. It was great to see it back this year, and Gertrude or I have always marched. History lovers, there's so much more I could tell you, but we'd be here all night. All right, you want to be? Okay, look. I must mention involvement in Let's Get Equal campaign, and despite my open relationship ideology, I did march for marriage equality. Since 1999, I've been treasurer of the benevolent trust Parkstone Foundation, which annually awards grants to organisations which serve our rainbow community. In recent years, Gertrude's Walks have been a fundraiser for Parkstone. I've been on the organising committee of 3 national homosexual history conferences held here in Adelaide and presented in numerous others. I was on the organising committee for 2 wonderful exhibitions held at the State Library of South Australia. The 2013 exhibition celebrated the 40th anniversary of Pride March and Parade, and in 2015 exhibition the 40th anniversary of gay law reform. There's the Oral History Project sponsored by ECH in conjunction with Oral History Association and the State Library, which afforded me the opportunity to interview and record the lives of members of our gay community. I would be remiss if I did not at least mention Gertrude's literary achievements. 12 years from 2003 to 15 as a regular columnist for the community publication Blaze, which he very appropriately titled The G-Spot. And of course, her crowning glory, the tantalising tome Queen of the Walk, Gertrude's Guide to Gay Adelaide History, published for Feast 2021. How's that for self-promotion? But wait, there's more. It is available, of course, in fact, and Gertrude's lovely publisher, Alex Duncan, is here with us today, and I believe, well, indeed, has copy for those who have been so remiss as not to purchase one yet. You can also hear Gertrude discussing her book when she does her In Conversation with the fabulous Dr. Nikki Sullivan at City Library on Thursday, the 24th at 2 p.m. Check your Feast program. I believe it's heavily booked, but there might still just be a spot or 2. As many of you will know, I love a quote. So I want to conclude with a couple of my faves. They were also faves of John Lee and Ian Purcell. More ephemera. This is the invitation to the 20th anniversary celebration of Stonewall here in Adelaide in June 1969. And it is actually, there's a photograph of the first Pride Parade. And if you look very carefully, you can see the I in Pride, can't you? But on the back, there are 2 quotes that I want to share with you. One from John Lee and the other from Edmund White. John says, it is nearly 20 years since the modern gay movement had its symbolic beginning in the Stonewall riots of June 1969. On that occasion, queens, dykes, and drag queens fought back against police harassment at a popular New York City bar, the Stonewall. The riots heralded a new era in homosexual and lesbian consciousness and activism. 20 years on, we have much to celebrate. That was 1969. And then this quote about activism by Edmund White. Activism is not only valuable for the community, but also essential for one's own mental health. Being gay in a straight world, even a hypothetically permissive straight world, is so alienating that the only way to avoid depression is through the assertion of one's own gay identity. Anger can take 3 forms: self-hatred, uncontrollable rage, and calm but constant self-assertion. The first solution is tiresome, the second useless, the third wise, calm and constant self-assertion. Edmund. I really like that. And finally, oh, Greg, there's one more. Sit down, Greg. Oh. Greg, as Gertrude always says, if you're tight at the end, you can leave early, but you'll miss the climax. I promise you, it is the very last thing. And I am within time, yes. You'll see up there, Blatant is Beautiful, which has been a sort of catch cry for me all these years. And I first read it in Dennis Altman's book, Homosexual Oppression and Liberation. This is the original copy from 1972, another piece of ephemera. It's not in terribly good shape, but and I don't know, I'm a bit naughty. With textbooks, I underline things. Do people do that? It is naughty. It's, oh, good. I'm in good company. But it is this statement, Blatant is Beautiful, that really, it's very 70s, but has sort of been an enduring anthem for me. And if, as Edmund White says, sometimes you feel a bit down or depressed, and he did overstate that a bit, didn't he, really? But that's a time thing as well. And so is this Blatant is Beautiful. But I find it uplifting and sustaining. So my final words are these. Blatant is beautiful. Oh, how I love that saying. The age of blatantness is upon us, brothers and sisters. Take a stand and show your fairy wings and construction helmets. Straight society is really down on blatant gays, and that affects and oppresses all gay people, because gays won't be treated as beautiful human beings until even the most flaming faggots and diesel dykes are respected in our community as well as in straight society. It's time now for all gay people to stand up and kick out the jam. Straight have ruled us for too long. It's time to be yourself. Don't blend in with straight people. That's oppressing yourself. Blatant is beautiful.